You shave and I'll kill you. The human dragged down did the unthinkable. Commander Alex Larkin had never thought of himself as someone who would ever bow to an alien's strange customs. But as he stood face to face with General Kavar, he began to question everything he had ever known about power and survival. The alien general towered over him, an imposing figure with dark, smooth skin, several layers of armor, and eyes that gleamed like twin moons. His species, the Kavar, had a reputation across the galaxy for their advanced technology and ruthlessness. Larkin wasn't one to shy away from a fight. As the commanding officer of a human base on the edge of the galaxy, he had fought countless battles against hostile alien races. But this was something entirely different. A challenge, yes, but one that seemed almost too absurd to be taken seriously. "You shave or I kill you," Kavar had said, his voice cold and clear, his words falling like stones into a pool of silence. Larkin blinked, unsure if he had heard the alien correctly. Shave. What did that even mean? Was it a metaphor, or some kind of alien rite of passage? He quickly scanned the room, taking in the faces of the alien council around him. They were all staring at him with a mixture of curiosity and amusement, clearly waiting for his response. "You heard me," Kavar repeated, his gaze unwavering. "Shave your face, human, or you die." Larkin's mind raced. Was this some kind of test? Was this alien custom meant to demean him? He had heard stories about the strange customs of other species, but nothing had prepared him for this. The tension in the room was palpable, and yet all Larkin could think of was how ridiculous it sounded. But he was no fool. He knew better than to show weakness in front of these creatures. He took a deep breath, trying to gather his thoughts. His fingers twitched at his sides, instinctively reaching for the knife at his belt, but he stopped himself. This wasn't about fighting. This was about something far more complex, something that tested his will and his place in this alien world. "Why?" Larkin asked, his voice steady despite the uncertainty building inside him. Kavar's lips curled into what might have been a smile, though it was hard to tell. "Because I can, because you're a human. You are beneath me, beneath my people. We don't recognize your kind as equals, Commander Larkin. You will either submit to this simple request or suffer the consequences." Larkin stood frozen for a moment, weighing his options. He had been in difficult situations before, but never like this. This was not a battle of weapons, tactics, or even honor. It was about power and control, a test of whether he would bend to an alien's whim. The room was eerily silent, the council members watching him with an intensity that was almost palpable. His heart raced, but his mind stayed calm. He had been trained for this moment, though not in the way one would expect. In the military, they taught you how to survive, how to fight, how to be a leader. But nothing had prepared him for this kind of manipulation, this kind of challenge. He knew that if he gave in, it would be the first of many humiliations to come. If he refused, the consequences could be dire. Finally, he spoke. "I don't shave, I don't bow to anyone, not even to aliens." A ripple of shock passed through the room. The council members exchanged glances, unsure of how to react. Some seemed amused, others angered. Kavar's expression hardened and his eyes narrowed, though he made no move toward violence. Instead, he simply nodded. "Very well," Kavar said, his voice cold and threatening. "You've made your choice. I hope you're ready to face the consequences of your defiance, human." Before Larkin could respond, two guards stepped forward and grabbed him by the arms. He didn't resist, knowing it would do no good. They dragged him out of the chamber and down a long, cold hallway. As they moved deeper into the alien compound, Larkin couldn't help but wonder what awaited him. It wasn't the first time he had faced certain death, but this felt different. It felt personal. The guards brought him to a large, circular room with high ceilings. At the center of the room was a raised platform, and around it stood a group of alien soldiers, their weapons raised and ready. Larkin's eyes narrowed as he looked around the room. This wasn't just about a shaving ritual. This was a test of his resolve, a challenge that he couldn't afford to lose. Kavar entered the room, his eyes scanning Larkin with an almost predatory gaze. "This is your punishment," he said, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "You will fight in the arena. And if you survive, I will allow you to leave this place. If not, well, I will let you die a warrior's death." Larkin's heart pounded in his chest, but his mind remained sharp. He had faced worse odds before. This wasn't the end, not yet. He had to think. He had to survive. "Do you think this will break me?" Larkin asked, his voice low but filled with determination. Kavar's smile widened. No, human, I think this will make you understand your place in the universe. You are nothing. You are weaker than us, and we will show you that. Larkin's fists clenched at his sides. He could feel the weight of the alien's words, but he refused to let them get to him. This wasn't about pride. This was about survival. He would not let these aliens break him. He would fight, and if he had to, he would die fighting. The guards pushed him forward, and Larkin stepped onto the platform, his eyes scanning the alien soldiers around him. He was outnumbered, but he was never one to back down. His training had prepared him for moments like this, where thinking on his feet was the only way to survive. As the platform began to rise, taking him to the center of the arena, Larkin took a deep breath. He focused on the task at hand. He didn't have the luxury of fear. Not now, not ever. The alien crowd began to roar as Larkin was thrust into the heart of the arena. The gates on the opposite side of the field opened, and a massive creature charged toward him. It was the size of a small building with sharp claws and teeth that could tear through metal. Larkin didn't hesitate. He grabbed a nearby weapon, a long spear-like device, and took a defensive stance. The creature barreled toward him, but he wasn't going to make it easy for it. He swung the spear with all his might, dodging the creature's deadly claws as it lunged toward him. The crowd was growing louder with each passing second, but Larkin blocked them out. All that mattered was surviving this fight. He had to show Kvar and the others that humanity wasn't just some weak species. They were survivors, fighters, and Larkin was going to prove it. With a swift strike, Larkin drove the spear into the creature's side, sending it crashing to the ground. The alien crowd went silent for a moment before erupting into cheers. Larkin didn't care about the applause. All he cared about was the next threat. As the arena gates opened once more, a new challenge approached, and Larkin prepared himself for whatever came next. This was just the beginning, and he was going to make sure it wasn't his end. The roar of the alien crowd was deafening. Larkin's heart was still pounding in his chest, but his mind had settled. The fight with the creature had been brutal, but he had survived. He hadn't just survived, he had won, but he knew that this victory was only the beginning. The alien guards didn't give him a moment to rest. The arena gates opened again, and another wave of monstrous creatures poured in. Each one seemed more dangerous than the last. The crowd's cheers were a twisted soundtrack to his desperate struggle to stay alive. Larkin's body ached from the previous battle. His muscles screamed for rest, but there was no time for that. The alien creatures were fast, vicious, and relentless. If he didn't keep moving, he would become their next meal. He gripped his weapon tighter and forced himself to focus. The first of the new creatures was a long, serpentine beast with scales as hard as steel. Its mouth was filled with rows of jagged teeth, and its eyes gleamed with hunger. Larkin didn't hesitate. He charged forward, using the spear he had used in the previous fight. He had no choice but to meet the beast head-on. If he waited for it to come to him, it would have the advantage. The serpent lunged at him, snapping its teeth. Larkin dodged to the side just in time, feeling the air shift as the creature's teeth grazed his shoulder. He cursed under his breath, but didn't slow down. He swung the spear at the creature's head, aiming for its soft underbelly. The spear struck true, but the serpent's scales were tougher than he had anticipated. The beast hissed in pain, but didn't stop. It twisted its body and slammed its tail into Larkin's chest, knocking him to the ground. Larkin's breath escaped him in a painful gasp. The impact had knocked the wind out of him, and for a moment he thought he might black out. But he couldn't afford that. He had to get up. He had to fight. The serpent loomed over him, its fangs bared, but Larkin's survival instincts kicked in. He rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the creature's bite. His hand grasped a sharp rock on the ground, and he stabbed it into the creature's exposed eye. The serpent let out a screech of agony, thrashing violently before finally collapsing to the ground, dead. Larkin staggered to his feet, breathing heavily. He wiped the sweat from his brow and took a moment to steady himself. The arena was a hell of chaos. Creatures, traps, and the watchful eyes of the alien council surrounded him. But he couldn't afford to stop. There was still more to come. Before he could catch his breath, the next creature emerged from the shadows. This one was humanoid in shape, but covered in thick armored plating. Its arms were twice the size of Larkin's and ended in claws that looked capable of ripping through steel. The creature growled and lunged at him, its claws aimed for his throat. Larkin barely had time to react. He raised his spear, parrying the blow and pushing the creature back. It was strong, far stronger than any human, but Larkin wasn't about to let it win. He used the creature's momentum against it, sidestepping its strike and delivering a quick stab to its side. The blow didn't kill it, but it made the creature hesitate just for a moment. That was all Larkin needed. He took advantage of the creature's moment of weakness, driving his spear deeper into its chest. The alien roared in pain, its clawed hand swiping wildly at Larkin. But the human was too fast. He ducked under the creature's wild strikes, landing another blow to its chest. The creature's movement slowed, and with a final, powerful thrust, Larkin drove the spear through its heart, killing it. He stood over the creature's body, panting heavily. His muscles were sore, his body covered in cuts and bruises, but he was alive. He had done it. He had survived. The arena gates opened again, and Larkin's heart sank. He wasn't finished yet. There would be no rest, no time to recover. The next wave of challenges was coming, but just as Larkin braced himself for what was next, something unexpected happened. The alien crowd suddenly went silent. The buzzing energy in the air shifted, and Larkin looked up to see Kvar standing at the top of the arena, his eyes locked on him. Kvar's voice boomed through the arena, his words amplified by a sound system. "Enough!" Larkin froze, confusion flashing through his mind. What did that mean? Was it over? Was this some kind of trick? Kvar continued, his voice echoing around the arena. "This human has shown us something we have not seen before. Courage, strength, determination. We will see if he can survive the ultimate test." Larkin's heart skipped a beat. The ultimate test? What was Kvar talking about? The alien general raised his hand, and the arena gates opened once again. This time, however, it wasn't another creature that emerged. It was a humanoid figure, tall and imposing, clad in advanced armor. The figure moved with deadly precision, and as it stepped into the arena, Larkin could sense the difference in the air. This wasn't a creature. This wasn't a random alien warrior. This was something more. Kvar's voice rang out once again. "This is Threx, the champion of the Kvar. He has never been defeated. If you survive him, you will have proven yourself worthy. If not, well, let us see." Larkin's stomach tightened. Threx, a champion, the word alone carried weight. The crowd murmured, and Larkin could feel their eyes on him, their anticipation growing with each passing second. Threx stepped forward, his movements smooth and controlled. He was a monster of a being, a machine of pure strength. Larkin could see the deadly energy emanating from him, and he knew that if he didn't give it everything he had, he wouldn't leave this arena alive. He had no choice but to fight. Threx raised his weapon, a massive, energy-charged sword, and swung it at Larkin with incredible speed. The human barely managed to duck in time, feeling the wind of the blade as it passed inches from his face. He rolled to the side, quickly getting to his feet. This wasn't going to be like the other fights. He couldn't rely on just his strength or his weapon. He needed to outthink Threx, to find a way to use the alien's power against him. Threx lunged again, and this time Larkin didn't try to dodge. Instead, he met the strike head-on, using his spear to block the sword. The force of the impact sent a shockwave through Larkin's arms, but he gritted his teeth and held his ground. He couldn't afford to show weakness. The two warriors stood locked in a deadly dance, their weapons clashing with deafening force. Larkin's arms burned from the strain, but he kept moving, parrying, and attacking with every ounce of his strength. Threx was faster, stronger, and more experienced, but Larkin had something the champion didn't: determination. He wasn't just fighting for his life. He was fighting for his people, for humanity's place in the galaxy, and he wasn't going to let this alien champion take that away from him. As the battle raged on, Larkin's mind raced. He could see the faintest cracks in Threx's defense. The champion wasn't invincible. If Larkin could just find the right moment, the right weakness, and then it came. Threx made a misstep, leaving himself open for just a fraction of a second. Larkin seized the opportunity, driving his spear into the gap in Threx's armor. The alien let out a roar of pain as the weapon struck home, and for the first time Larkin saw doubt in the champion's eyes. This was his chance. With a final, powerful strike, Larkin plunged the spear deeper, shattering Threx's armor and ending the battle. The arena fell silent, the crowd stunned into disbelief. Larkin stood over Threx's fallen body, panting heavily, his mind still buzzing from the adrenaline. He had done it. Against all odds, he had survived. But as he looked around at the alien council, he knew this was just the beginning. There would be more tests, more challenges, but he was ready. Humanity was ready. And Kvar's challenge was far from over. Larkin stood alone in the middle of the arena. the massive body of Threx lying motionless at his feet. The alien crowd was silent, staring in stunned disbelief at the human who had just defeated their greatest champion. The air was thick with tension, and for a moment Larkin thought he might collapse. His body was battered, bruised, and covered in sweat, but he didn't let that show. He couldn't afford to. He had survived, but for what? He had proven something. Yes, he had proven that humanity wasn't as weak as the aliens thought. But what did it really mean? Kavar was still out there, and the alien general hadn't shown any sign of backing down. If anything, this victory would make him more dangerous. The arena was silent for several long moments before the crowd began to murmur. It wasn't a cheer or a roar of victory. It was confusion. The Kavar had never seen an outsider, let alone a human, best their champion. But even in the midst of their shock, there was something more in the air, curiosity. Kavar stepped forward from the shadows, his tall figure casting a long shadow over the arena. His face was unreadable, his eyes focused on Larkin. The alien general said nothing at first. Instead, he looked down at the fallen Threx, his most trusted warrior, now defeated by a human. There was no anger in Kavar's expression, only an odd sort of intrigue. "You've done something no one has done before, human." Kavar's voice was low and calm, his words carrying across the arena. "You have defeated Threx, and yet you still stand." Larkin didn't respond immediately. His chest heaved as he tried to catch his breath, but he couldn't let his guard down. Kavar's presence was like a weight on his shoulders, an ever-present threat. This was far from over. "I don't need your approval, Kavar," Larkin said, his voice steady, though his body still ached from the fight. "I've done what you asked, now let me go." Kavar tilted his head slightly, his sharp eyes narrowing. "You think I would simply let you walk away after all this?" "No, human, you have proven yourself in battle, but that is not enough. You have much more to prove before you are free." Larkin's stomach sank. He had known it wouldn't be that easy, but hearing the words out loud made it real. He wasn't free. He wasn't going anywhere, not yet. "I don't care what you think, Kavar," Larkin said, clenching his fists. "I'm not your plaything, I won't be your trophy, you're not going to break me." Kavar's lips twitched in something that might have been a smile. It wasn't kind, though. "Oh, I don't plan to break you, human. No, I'm far more interested in watching you break others." Larkin's brow furrowed in confusion, but before he could respond, the general gestured to the guards standing by the arena. They moved quickly, surrounding Larkin with their weapons drawn. One of them grabbed him by the arm, dragging him toward a side entrance. Larkin didn't resist. He knew it was pointless. The time for fighting was over, for now. But he wasn't going to let this alien scum break his spirit. They led him through a narrow corridor and into a dark room where a single light flickered above them. It was cold and damp, the air thick with the smell of metal and decay. Larkin was pushed into a small iron cage, its bars thick and unyielding. He was alone now, left with nothing but his thoughts and the growing sense of unease that settled deep in his stomach. As the door to the cage slammed shut, the guards turned and left without a word. Larkin stood motionless, staring at the cold floor beneath him. He didn't know what Kavar had planned for him next, but he wasn't about to wait around to find out. He moved to the back of the cage, pressing his back against the bars. The silence in the room was oppressive, but Larkin refused to let it break him. He had been through worse, much worse. He was a soldier trained to endure. He would survive this. But as he stood there, lost in thought, the sound of footsteps echoed through the corridor outside. Larkin tensed, his hand instinctively moving to his knife. He didn't know who it was, but he wasn't going to let his guard down. The door to the cage creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. It wasn't one of the guards. Larkin recognized her immediately, Princess Allura, the exiled ruler of a fallen alien empire. She had been watching the battles from the sidelines, her eyes filled with something Larkin couldn't quite place. Now she stood before him, her eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and something more. "I didn't expect to see you here," Larkin said, his voice low but not unfriendly. "What do you want?" Allura didn't speak right away. Instead, she took a step closer, her gaze never leaving his. Larkin could feel the weight of her stare, like she was seeing straight through him. For a moment, the silence between them was thick, like the calm before a storm. "I wanted to see if you were as human as they say," she said quietly. "The Kavar don't understand you. They don't understand how you fight, how you think, but I see it. I see what makes you different." Larkin didn't know how to respond to that. He wasn't sure what Allura meant, but he could see the sincerity in her eyes. This wasn't just a political play, not for her. "You're not like them," Alora continued, her voice softer now. "You don't bow, you don't break, you're something more." Larkin met her gaze, his mind racing. What was she trying to say? What did it all mean? "I'm just a soldier," Larkin said. "I do what I have to do to survive." Alora's lips curled into a faint smile. "That's not what I see. You've done more than just survive, Commander Larkin. You've shown them that humans can fight, can lead. You've proven that you're not just a weak, fragile species to be ruled over." Larkin didn't know how to respond to that. He was no hero. He had simply done what was necessary. But he understood now that the fight wasn't just about survival. It was about something much larger than himself. "You've earned their respect," Alora said, her voice almost wistful. "And that is more than most could ever dream of." Larkin looked away for a moment, his mind spinning. Respect. From the Kavar, it didn't feel like respect. It felt more like a dangerous game, a game where he was both the pawn and the prize. "What's your plan, then?" he asked, his voice flat. "You've seen what they're capable of." "They won't stop just because I beat their champion. They'll come for me, for all of us." Alora nodded, her expression growing serious. "I know, but you've proven something that no one else has. You've shown that humans can fight, that you can lead, and that's why I'm here." Larkin raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Alora took a step closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "I'm offering you an alliance. The Kavar are weak, Commander. Their empire is fragile, built on fear and manipulation, but together we can bring them down. Together we can free the galaxy." Larkin's heart raced as he processed her words. An alliance? Could he trust her? Could he afford not to? "You want me to join you?" he asked, his voice wary. Alora nodded. "I believe in your strength, in your leadership. Together we could overthrow Kavar and his empire." Larkin stood still for a moment, letting the weight of her offer settle over him. He had never considered himself a leader, never thought he would have the power to change the fate of an entire galaxy. But here was an opportunity to do just that. "I'll think about it," Larkin said finally, his voice firm. "But right now I need to get out of here, and I need to do it my way." Alora smiled faintly. "I wouldn't expect anything less." As she turned to leave, Larkin stood alone once more, the weight of his choices heavy on his shoulders. He didn't know what would come next, but one thing was clear. He wasn't done yet. He was far from finished. Larkin paced the small, cold cell that had become his temporary home. His thoughts were a whirlwind, spinning faster and faster with each passing moment. Alora's words echoed in his mind. An alliance. She wanted him to join her cause to help overthrow Kavar and his empire. It sounded like madness, but something about it made sense. He had just defeated Threx, the Kavar champion, something no one had ever done before. The victory had shaken the alien general and his council, but it hadn't been enough to earn Larkin his freedom. No, Kavar still had a plan for him. A plan that would probably involve more bloodshed, more suffering. Larkin was tired. He was tired of fighting, tired of being a pawn in someone else's game. He just wanted to go home. He wanted to get back to Earth to see his people, to rebuild. But he knew that the war wasn't over, not by a long shot. And if he didn't make a choice soon, the Kavar would make it for him. He stopped pacing and leaned against the cold metal bars of his cell, staring out into the darkness. The alien world outside was strange and hostile, but it was no different than any other battlefield he had faced. It was a place of conflict, a place where survival was all that mattered. And Larkin was a survivor. He always had been. The sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor, pulling him from his thoughts. He straightened up and turned toward the door. He knew who it was before the guard even spoke. "The general wants to see you," the guard said, his voice flat and emotionless. Without waiting for a response, he unlocked the cell door and stepped aside, allowing Larkin to exit. Larkin followed the guard through the labyrinthine hallways of the Kavar compound, his mind racing with possibilities. What did Kavar want now? He had already proven his strength, but the general was never one to back down. He always had another challenge, another test to push Larkin to his limits. They reached a large chamber where Kavar stood waiting. The general's imposing figure was framed by the flickering lights that cast long shadows across the room. His eyes locked onto Larkin, cold and calculating. "You've proven yourself human," Kavar said, his voice low and measured. "But that is not enough. You are more than just a warrior. You are a symbol of something the galaxy fears, and now you will lead." Larkin didn't say anything. His chest tightened as he tried to process the meaning behind Kavar's words. Lead? Lead what? He had never considered himself a leader. He was a soldier, not a king, not a general. But Kvar was right about one thing. He had become a symbol. He had become the face of the resistance, the one who had defied the mighty Kvar. "I don't lead," Larkin said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. I fight to survive, that's all I know." Kvar stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "And that is why you will lead. You understand survival better than any of my people. You know what it means to fight when everything seems lost. You have something they don't, human. You have a fire inside of you that cannot be extinguished. That is why I need you." Larkin didn't flinch. He had no intention of giving in to Kvar's manipulation. The general's words were calculated, designed to break him, to make him doubt himself. But Larkin wasn't going to fall for it. He had to stay strong. He had to keep his focus. "You want me to fight for you?" Larkin said, his voice cold. "But I'm not your weapon. I'm not your tool to control." Kvar's eyes narrowed. "I didn't say you were. You will fight for the galaxy, for freedom, for your people. I know you want to go back to Earth. But if you want to return to your planet, if you want to rebuild, you must first tear down the empire that keeps you from it." Larkin's mind raced again, and he felt a tight knot form in his stomach. He had come here with one goal in mind: to survive. But now he was faced with a choice that could change everything. He could join Kvar, fight alongside the general, and perhaps earn his way back to Earth, or he could refuse and face whatever consequences came next. "I'm no leader," Larkin said, his voice quieter now. "I'm just a soldier." Kvar's smile was small but sinister. "A soldier can become a leader. It's only a matter of what he fights for. What do you fight for, human? What is worth fighting for?" Larkin's mind flashed back to Earth, to the people he had left behind, to the planet that was still fighting its own battles. What did he fight for? The answer was clear. He fought for survival, for freedom, for his people. "I fight for Earth," Larkin said, his voice strong once more. "And I will do whatever it takes to see it survive." Kvar nodded slowly, as though he had expected the answer. "Very well. Then you will fight for the galaxy too. You will join me, and we will burn the Empire to the ground, together." Larkin knew that this was a crossroads. Joining Kvar would mean aligning himself with the very force he had fought against. But refusing him would likely mean death, or worse. Larkin had never been one to bow to a tyrant, but he also knew that in this galaxy, sometimes survival meant playing the game. And right now, the only game worth playing was the one that would get him back to Earth. Kvar stepped back, his eyes watching Larkin with interest. "You have made your choice, but know this, human: if you betray me, there will be no escape. I will find you, and I will destroy everything you hold dear." Larkin didn't say anything. He simply nodded, acknowledging the threat without fear. He had faced worse in his life, and he wasn't going to back down now. The general turned and motioned for the guards to lead Larkin away. As he was escorted out of the chamber, Larkin's mind was filled with conflicting thoughts. He had joined Kvar, but that didn't mean he had to follow the general's every order. He was still a soldier, still capable of making his own choices. He would find a way to use this alliance to his advantage. He had to. The fate of Earth depended on it. Back in his cell, Larkin sat on the cold stone floor, his mind racing. The decision he had made weighed heavily on him, but he knew it was the only way forward. The Kvar Empire was strong, but it was not invincible, and Larkin would find a way to bring it down. It was going to be a long road ahead, but he was ready. He had proven that he could survive. Now he would prove that he could lead. And if Kvar thought he had won, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. Larkin sat on the edge of his bunk, his hands gripping the cold metal bars of his cell. The choice he had made weighed heavily on him, but he had no time to dwell on it. Time was something he didn't have any more. Since agreeing to join Kvar's cause, everything had changed. The enemy he had once fought against was now his supposed ally, and with that came a new set of rules. He had to play this game carefully if he was to survive and eventually return to Earth. The days blurred together. Kvar's plans moved swiftly, and Larkin found himself at the center of them, not as a pawn but as something else. A figurehead, a symbol of rebellion. The alien general had big ambitions for him, and Larkin could feel the weight of those ambitions pressing down on him. Kvar's forces were preparing for a full-scale assault on the heart of the Kvar Empire. The general was confident, too confident, but Larkin had seen what unchecked confidence could do. It was a flaw, a dangerous one. The Kvar had never fought a war on this scale, and Larkin had a feeling that Kavar was underestimating the strength of the resistance, including the humans. He knew how to turn the tides of battle, but he needed to find a way to do it without betraying his own people. He had to keep his head clear. He had to play this right. One evening, as Larkin sat in his cell, he was visited by someone unexpected. It was Alora, the princess. Her soft footsteps echoed in the corridor before she appeared at the bars of his cell. "I didn't expect you to come here," Larkin said, standing up. He wasn't sure what she wanted, but he knew it was something important. Alora looked at him with a mixture of admiration and concern. "You've become more than just a soldier, Larkin," she said quietly. "You're a leader now, but you're also walking a fine line." Larkin leaned against the bars, studying her. "What are you getting at?" Alora stepped closer, her expression serious. "I know you're playing Kavar's game, but don't forget he's not someone you can trust. He doesn't care about you or Earth or anyone but himself." Larkin felt a pang of guilt. She was right. Kavar was a ruthless strategist, and his alliance with Larkin wasn't born out of respect. It was born from a need to control. But Larkin couldn't afford to think about that now. He had a larger goal in mind. "I know," Larkin said, his voice low. "But right now I don't have a choice. I have to get back to Earth. I can't do that if I fight him head-on. If I play by his rules, I can get close enough to destroy him from the inside." Alora nodded, but her eyes showed doubt. "That's a dangerous game you're playing. Kavar is too powerful. He's not going to let you go once he's used you. You have to remember who the real enemy is." Larkin could see the truth in her eyes. She was right to be worried, but there was no easy answer. If he didn't act now, if he didn't take this opportunity to undermine Kavar's empire, there wouldn't be another chance. The galaxy would fall under Kavar's rule, and humanity would be enslaved. Earth would be lost forever. "I'll be careful," Larkin promised, though he didn't believe it himself. He wasn't sure how he was going to get out of this, but he knew one thing for sure: he couldn't do it alone. Alora's gaze softened, and for a moment Larkin saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. "You're not alone," she said quietly. "I'll help you. We both have something to fight for." Larkin met her gaze, and for the first time since arriving on this alien world, he felt like he wasn't completely alone. Alora had her own reasons for wanting to bring Kavar down, and together they had the power to do it. The next day, Kavar summoned Larkin again. This time, he wasn't in a cell but standing at the center of a command room where the general had gathered his officers. Larkin felt the eyes of Kavar's high-ranking soldiers on him, but he refused to let them intimidate him. He had a plan, and he was ready to put it into action. Kavar was standing at the far end of the room, his posture regal and imposing. The general's cold, calculating eyes were fixed on Larkin as he approached. "You've proven yourself worthy of leading this campaign," Kavar said. "You will be at the forefront of our attack. You will strike fear into the hearts of those who dare to oppose us." Larkin nodded, trying to hide his inner skepticism. "I'll do my part," he said, his voice steady. He knew that this was the moment where he had to begin playing the game for real. He had to maintain the illusion of loyalty, all while planning the perfect time to strike back. But Kavar wasn't finished. "However," the general said, his voice colder now, "there is one final test. You must prove your loyalty beyond any doubt. You will lead the attack on their capital city. If you fail, there will be no mercy. Your people will be wiped out." Larkin's heart skipped a beat, but his face remained unchanged. He couldn't let Kavar see his fear, his hesitation. The general wanted to test him, to make sure he was fully committed to his side, but Larkin had no intention of following through with the attack. He would use this opportunity to gather information, to find weaknesses, and to plan his next move. "I won't fail," Larkin said, his voice as confident as he could make it. Kavar's eyes gleamed with approval. "Good, you understand what is at stake." Larkin nodded and turned to leave the room. As soon as he stepped out, Alora was waiting for him in the hallway. "You heard?" she asked quietly, her voice filled with concern. Larkin nodded. "I'm leading the attack. It's the perfect opportunity. We'll be able to strike from the inside, but we need to move fast." Alora's expression darkened. "This is getting dangerous. Kavar will expect you to be loyal to carry out the plan, but you can't afford to fail." "I won't," Larkin said, his voice steady. "This is our chance. We take down the capital, we cripple Kavar's empire, and we get back to Earth. No more playing by his rules. We do this on our terms." Alora placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes serious. "Just remember, Larkin, Kavar is watching you. You can't trust him." And you can't trust anyone in this place except for yourself. Larkin met her gaze, determination burning in his chest. I know, but we're not doing this alone. Together we'll bring this empire down, and we'll take back what's ours. With that, Larkin turned and walked away, his mind already working through the plan. He knew that the road ahead would be long, that Kvar's forces were strong, but he also knew that the power of unity, the strength of the human spirit, could overcome anything. It had to. The countdown to the final battle had begun, and Larkin was ready. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a leader, and this war, this fight for humanity's future, was far from over.